I'm Dave Statter from Statter911.com. We're here at the quarters of Engine 16, Tower 3 of the DC Fire and EMS Department, just a few blocks from the White House. Today, Firehouse.com is shooting a public service announcement to ensure that every firefighter wears a seatbelt. It's part of the National Fire Service Seatbelt Pledge. One of the folks here today is the City of Hampton, Virginia Division of Fire and Rescue Deputy Chief, George Morgan. First of all, Chief, tell me about the wreck on February 3rd.
We were working a brush fire in the peninsula of Virginia, and it had been a two-day brush fire. This was the second day of the event. We had set up a water shuttle because most of the water supply was being used on the larger fires in some of the other jurisdictions. We were setting up an engine water shuttle. In this particular unit, a 92 Pierce telesquirt, single operator was taking it down a small country road just after having established a draft. An oncoming car had approached him. Both units were moving off to the shoulder of the road, and in fact the fire engine dropped the rear wheel off to a fairly deep culvert. The operator immediately was turning the vehicle to the left. The vehicle became perpendicular to the road, started sliding down the road, hit a deep abutment at the end of the culvert, and just rolled over on its side.
The driver, what happened?
The driver was belted, was left hanging in the driver's position. Obviously, it had flipped over on the officer's side. Had managed to break himself loose before the rescue assignment got on the scene. They did have to go ahead and bring him out through the top of the driver's door in order to get him out of the vehicle, but he was uninjured. Sore the next day. We took him in for treatment and transport just to check him out. He was absolutely cleared that day from the hospital. Went through all the processes that we needed to do and returned back to duty within the week.
If he had not been belted, what do you think would have happened?
If he had not been belted, there were a couple of things that could have happened. There were some things that had ultimately slid around. He would have fallen over to the opposite side of the vehicle, probably had some trauma, some head trauma, just because of being dropped 4 to 6 feet and then landing on his head, landing on an arm.
As a deputy chief, what do you think your role is, or the role of the chief, in ensuring that your firefighters wear seatbelts?
Well, first off, it's a state-mandated law, and it's not just a law. In the region, unfortunately, we see an increase in civilian population that have been ejected. So these very responders are running emergency calls that they're seeing civilians that are not wearing seatbelts. So we reinforce the seatbelt regulation by every brother looks at each other. We make sure that, in fact, they're seatbelted before they move. There's an SOP that insists that. The officers are trained to that. We tolerate zero tolerance for not wearing any seatbelts while working.
Have you had some success with the seatbelt pledge?
We have, sir. We're a combination system, and we were able to get 100% of our volunteer force, made up of 6 individual companies, to sign the seatbelt pledge that they would wear their seatbelt. We've not been as successful in the sense of 100% with our career staff, but we have about 85 to 90%, and again, we feel that that's a strong commitment.
What do you say to chiefs of other departments about the seatbelt pledge and trying to get this 100% compliance, and what you've learned from the wreck that you've experienced?
A couple of things there. My boss is absolutely 100% for safety, from the fireground to training to the whole gambit. He is 100%, and he espouses that at every meeting, every memo, every strategic planning session, everywhere that he has an opportunity. It's clear what his message is. It has to start at the top. What we've learned from this crash, unfortunately, is that we've lost a piece of equipment, but we have not lost a member of our organization. That member is back to full performance. He has a story to tell himself. We're utilizing his talents to again bring that out. It was a success story, even though it was, I guess I call it a serious detriment to the apparatus, but not to the most important, the people.
The fire service disciplines those who are late for work and for a variety of other infractions. How about for seatbelts?
We discipline for seatbelts. It is unacceptable and could be time off for work, but more importantly, we want to send a message that we want them to come home.
Do you think there is a connection between failure to follow the seatbelt policy and other safety issues?
I do. I believe it's a culture, and I believe you're exactly correct. I believe that it's just what you can get away with. The seatbelt one is very simple to do, and if you feel you can't do that one, then I wonder what you're doing when we can't see you.
We hear lots of excuses like I can't get my PPE on with the seatbelt on, and I'm not fast enough when I have my seatbelt on. Are there any excuses for not wearing seatbelts?
There are absolutely no excuses. There are no excuses. There's no excuses for our erratic driving, for our chances that we're taking, and specifically in this one, which is a no-brainer.
Do you think the National Seatbelt Pledge has had an impact on the fire service?
I think it's the momentum is gaining. I think the situation of the individual that the pledge was started for has drawn a lot of attention. I see the numbers increase, not necessarily to the way we need the numbers to go, but I do believe whether you pledge or not, it is out there in the forefront.
Any other efforts from your department in trying to make this work that you could think of?
No, we're looking at color coding the seatbelts like some of the organizations are, so that we can take a glance and see that it's done. But I think it's a self-performance. It's a culture change. It's a behavior modification, and that's where we're working.
I imagine when you started this fire service, you didn't wear seatbelts. You rode the back step, and I bet you a lot of young guys point that out to you.
That has been brought up, but clearly I have some horror stories of my own. In the organization where I started, we didn't lose their lives, but we had a unit when we were riding the back step with no belts, and we had 8 firefighters seriously injured when they hit a median strip and flipped, much the way this unit did. And that was a serious event. They didn't walk away from that.
You personally think this is important to come here to let people know about the experience you had?
I do. That was a horrible feeling to sit there and hear that happen, to hear it on the radio. The idea that we're not sure how serious this was going to get until obviously one of the units got on the scene first. Very relieved. I don't want to have to go through that situation. I know my boss doesn't want to do that, and I wouldn't envision any nation's fire service wants to.
Does it go through your mind immediately when you have a wreck like that? Was the person wearing a seatbelt?
It was secondary after I found out he was okay. You're absolutely correct. I did ask about the seatbelt, and we also do random drug testing and so on and so forth, alcohol and drug testing, and we follow that procedure as well. We want to make sure that our people come to work prepared, that they stay safe while they're working.
Any other messages about seatbelts that you want to say out there?
No, I appreciate what's going on here today, and I appreciate what Dr. Clark is doing to make this an issue in the forefront of the fire service. This is a no-brainer. We shouldn't be killing people with not wearing seatbelts.
Thank you, Chief.